14-year-old Marcus saw the man with the vest walking toward Hannah and 8-year-old Lily outside the clubhouse. He had 3 seconds to decide: run away like he always did, or save them. Marcus tackled the bomber. The detonator fell, but the explosion that should have killed them all never came. The vest malfunctioned. Marcus had just saved Reaper's entire family from a suicide attack. Then the bomber whispered something before the cops arrived, something that made Reaper's blood run cold. Marcus wasn't just a witness anymore. He was the next target. The bomber had partners, and they were coming for the homeless boy who ruined everything. Now 1,000 bikers faced a choice that would change their brotherhood forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are watching from in the comments. Enjoy the story. Marcus had exactly 3 seconds to decide if he wanted to die. The man in the bulky tactical vest was 20 feet from Hannah and Lily, his right hand buried deep in his pocket, his eyes locked on the little girl with the kind of focus that made Marcus's stomach turn to ice. Hannah was laughing at something Lily said, completely unaware. Her back was turned to the approaching threat as she fumbled with her keys outside the Hells Angels clubhouse on East Van Buren Street in downtown Phoenix. The August heat shimmered off the asphalt at 3:47 p.m., turning the air into something thick and suffocating. Marcus's hands were shaking so badly he could barely grip the chain-link fence he'd been hiding behind for the past hour. He'd been watching the clubhouse all afternoon from his usual spot, the condemned auto shop across the street where he'd been squatting since the shelter on Roosevelt kicked him out for fighting. 14 years old, and he'd already learned the most important rule of street survival: never get involved. Never be seen. Never matter to anyone, because the second you matter, you become a target. But Lily's gap-toothed smile flashed in his mind. The way she'd waved at him through the diner window that morning. The wrapped turkey sandwich Hannah had left on the dumpster with his name scribbled on the paper bag in purple marker. His name, like he was a person worth remembering. The man with the vest was 15 feet away now. Marcus saw his lips moving, whispering something rhythmic like a prayer or a countdown. His fingers twitched inside his pocket. The stranger's gait was mechanical, purposeful, like a missile locked onto its target. Hannah finally turned. Her smile faded the instant she registered the dead eyes and the bulky vest beneath the man's jacket. She grabbed Lily's shoulder and stepped back, but there was nowhere to go. They were pinned between the clubhouse entrance and a row of Harley-Davidsons parked along the curb. The man's hand started to emerge from his pocket. Marcus didn't think anymore. He just moved. His worn-out sneakers hit the scorching pavement as he vaulted the fence. The rusty metal scraped his palm, drawing blood, but he didn't feel it. His malnourished legs burned with the effort as he sprinted across the street. 20 feet. 15. He could hear Hannah screaming now, could see Lily's face frozen in confusion. The little girl didn't understand what was happening. She just saw a stranger walking toward her and her mother panicking. 10 feet. The man's thumb was pressing down on something, a small black device with a red button that seemed to glow in the desert sun. Time stretched like taffy. Marcus could see every detail. The sweat beading on the bomber's temple, the tremor in Hannah's hands as she tried to shield Lily. The way the sunlight caught the chrome on the motorcycles. Marcus slammed into the man with everything his 98-pound frame could generate. They hit the ground in a tangle of limbs and the smell of sweat and gasoline. Pain exploded through Marcus's shoulder as they crashed onto the blistering asphalt. The device flew from the man's hand, skittering across the pavement in a lazy arc before clattering to a stop near the clubhouse door. Marcus braced for the explosion, for the heat and the pain and the end of everything. But nothing happened. Just silence. Just the ragged sound of his own breathing and the bomber's wet laughter beneath him. "You stupid kid," the man wheezed, blood already pooling at the corner of his mouth. The clubhouse doors exploded open. Suddenly Marcus was being pulled off the man by hands that felt like steel cables. Reaper's face swam into view, all hard edges and gray beard and eyes that had seen too much. Behind him came 6 other Hells Angels members, their boots thundering on the pavement as they surrounded the bomber. Hannah was crying, clutching Lily against her chest. Lily was staring at Marcus with wide eyes, her small body trembling. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. The bomber was still laughing, blood bubbling from his split lip where Marcus's elbow had connected during the tackle. His eyes found Marcus, and something dark flickered in them. Amusement, maybe. Or pity. Wrong target, kid, the man wheezed. This was never about them. A biker named Grizz kicked the detonator away from the bomber's reaching hand. Another one, a massive guy with a cobra tattooed on his neck, wrenched the man's arms behind his back and zip-tied his wrists with practiced efficiency. Reaper crouched down next to the bomber, his voice low and dangerous. "Who sent you?" The bomber just smiled, showing red teeth, and said nothing. Subscribe now before the truth comes out. Comment where you're watching from. The Phoenix PD bomb squad arrived in 4 minutes flat. Their armored truck blocked off the entire street as officers evacuated nearby buildings and established a perimeter. Yellow tape went up. Civilians were pushed back. News helicopters appeared overhead like vultures circling prey. Marcus tried to slip away in the chaos. That's what he always did. Disappear before anyone could ask questions or demand explanations. Before anyone could see him long enough to remember his face. But Hannah caught his wrist. Her grip was gentle but firm, and when he looked up at her, her eyes were wet with tears. "You saved us," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You saved my baby." Marcus didn't know what to say to that. He'd never saved anyone before. He'd never been worth saving himself. Lily peeked out from behind her mother's legs and reached out a tiny hand toward Marcus. Her fingers were paint-stained and trembling. "Thank you," she said in a small voice that cracked something inside his chest. Reaper was watching him now, too, his expression unreadable. Marcus felt more exposed than he ever had, sleeping rough in Phoenix's most dangerous neighborhoods. The bomb squad lieutenant emerged from the cordoned-off area 15 minutes later. The look on his face made everyone go quiet. He walked straight to Reaper, ignoring the other officers trying to get his attention, and pulled him aside. Marcus was close enough to hear every word, though he pretended to be focused on the bottle of water a paramedic had forced into his hands. "There's no explosives," the lieutenant said quietly. Reaper's eyebrows shot up. "What?" "The vest is clean. But there's something else." The lieutenant held up 3 evidence bags. USB drives. Passport documents. A thick manila envelope stuffed with photographs. "This is evidence. Federal-level evidence. Human trafficking, money laundering, names and addresses of people in very high places. Arizona, Nevada, maybe further." The lieutenant's jaw tightened. This wasn't a bombing, Reaper. This was a delivery. Reaper's face went pale beneath his tan. A delivery to who? The lieutenant glanced at the bomber, who was now being loaded into an ambulance under police guard. "We'll know more after interrogation. But based on where he was standing when the kid tackled him, I'd say he was trying to reach you." The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Hannah made a small sound of confusion. Lily buried her face in her mother's stomach. Marcus felt the world tilt sideways as his mind tried to process what he was hearing. The bomber hadn't been trying to kill anyone. He'd been trying to deliver evidence. And Marcus had stopped him. Before anyone could say anything else, one of the officers monitoring the ambulance came running back, his face twisted with urgency. "Lieutenant, you need to hear this." The suspect regained consciousness, and he's talking. They all moved toward the ambulance. Reaper, the lieutenant, Hannah with Lily in her arms, and Marcus trailing behind like a ghost. The bomber's eyes found Marcus through the open ambulance doors. His bloody smile returned. "Wrong kid," the bomber repeated, his voice stronger now, more focused. "Wrong place. Wrong time." He coughed, and a paramedic tried to push him back down, but he fought against the restraints. His eyes never left Marcus. "I was supposed to hand it off clean. No witnesses. But you had to be a hero." The bomber's expression shifted into something that looked almost like pity. "They saw you, kid. The cameras caught your face. Now they know you exist." Reaper stepped forward, his voice a growl. "Who's they?" The bomber's smile faded entirely. "The people who own the names in those files. The people who'll do anything to keep this quiet." He turned his head toward the officer standing guard. "You better get that boy into protective custody right now, because the people I work for don't leave loose ends." His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across the entire scene. And he just became the biggest loose end in Arizona. The paramedic slammed the ambulance doors shut, but not before the bomber shouted one last thing that made Marcus's blood run cold. "They're coming for him now." The lieutenant immediately started barking orders into his radio about protective custody and federal involvement. Words like FBI and witness protection flew through the air. Officers scrambled to secure the perimeter. Hannah pulled Lily closer, her face drained of color. But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. He was staring across the street at the black SUV with tinted windows that had just pulled up and parked in the shade of a dying palm tree. The engine was running. Nobody got out. The windows stayed dark and impenetrable, reflecting nothing but the chaos of the crime scene. Marcus knew, with the kind of certainty that comes from surviving on streets where predators learned to recognize prey, that whoever was inside that vehicle was watching him, calculating, planning. Reaper followed Marcus's gaze. His jaw tightened. He placed a heavy hand on Marcus's shoulder, the first time anyone had touched him with something other than violence or pity in longer than he could remember. "You're not alone anymore, kid," Reaper said quietly. "Whatever's coming, we face it together." But as the black SUV's engine revved once, a sound like a promise or a threat, Marcus wondered if facing it together would be enough. Or if saving Lily and Hannah had just signed all their death warrants. The black SUV disappeared 30 seconds after Marcus spotted it. No screech of tires. No dramatic exit. It just rolled away into Phoenix traffic like a shadow dissolving at dawn, leaving Marcus staring at empty asphalt and wondering if he'd imagined the whole thing. But Reaper had seen it too. The way his hand tightened on Marcus's shoulder, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise, told him everything he needed to know. "Get him inside," Reaper barked to Grizz. Now, Marcus found himself being hustled through the clubhouse doors before he could protest. Strong hands gripped his shoulders, propelling him forward with the kind of urgency usually reserved for escaping bullets. His worn sneakers squeaked against polished concrete as he stumbled through the threshold. The interior was exactly what he'd imagined from months of watching from across the street. Dim lighting cast everything in amber shadows. Leather couches worn smooth by decades of use lined the walls. The air smelled like motor oil, cigarette smoke, and something else, history maybe, or brotherhood. Photographs covered every available surface, faded images of bikers from different eras, some dating back to the 1970s. Patches and memorabilia hung in frames like religious artifacts. Hannah and Lily were already inside, surrounded by 3 other bikers who'd formed a protective circle around them. Lily's face was still pale, her small hands clutching her mother's shirt like a lifeline. Her earlier smile had vanished completely, replaced by the wide-eyed expression of a child who'd just learned the world was more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. The lieutenant tried to follow them in, his hand already reaching for the door handle. But Reaper blocked the doorway, his 6'3" frame filling the entrance completely. "Give us 10 minutes, Reaper said. "This is a crime scene, and that boy is a material witness." 10 minutes, Reaper repeated. His voice dropped an octave, carrying the weight of decades commanding respect on dangerous streets. Something in his tone made the lieutenant step back involuntarily. The door slammed shut with a finality that made Marcus flinch. Suddenly, he was standing in the center of the room, acutely aware that every pair of eyes was on him. 12 Hell's Angels members, all sizing him up like a puzzle they couldn't quite solve. He'd seen these men from a distance for weeks, giants in leather who commanded respect just by existing. Up close, they were even more intimidating. Scars crisscrossed exposed skin. Tattoos told stories of violence and loyalty. These weren't men who made idle threats or empty promises. "You got a name, kid?" Grizz asked. He was older than the others, maybe 60, with a gray beard down to his chest and forearms covered in military tattoos that Marcus recognized from history books. The eagle, globe, and anchor. Purple hearts. Bronze stars. "Marcus," he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "Well, Marcus, you just saved my brother's family." Grizz gestured to Reaper with a weathered hand. "That makes you important." Real important. Hannah was crying again, but this time from relief. She crossed the room in 3 quick steps and pulled Marcus into a hug that made him stiffen. He wasn't used to being touched with kindness. Her embrace was warm and fierce, smelling like lavender shampoo and fierce sweat. "Thank you," she whispered against his hair. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Lily tugged on his torn shirt, her paint-stained fingers gentle. "Are you okay? You're bleeding." Marcus looked down. His palm was still seeping blood from the fence, leaving red smears on his jeans. His knee was torn open, showing a nasty scrape that had started to crust over with dirt and dried blood. He hadn't even noticed the pain until now. "I'm fine," he lied, because admitting weakness had never kept him alive on the streets. Reaper pulled out his phone and started typing furiously, his thumbs moving with surprising speed for a man with such large hands. "We need a church meeting. Full chapter. Every brother who can ride needs to be at the warehouse in 2 hours." The biker with the cobra tattoo, Marcus heard someone call him Viper, raised an eyebrow. His expression shifted from curious to concerned in an instant. "Every brother? That's 1,000 riders, Reaper. What are we dealing with?" "War," Reaper said simply, looking up from his phone. "We're dealing with war." The word hung in the air like smoke from a discharged weapon. The warehouse on South 32nd Street looked like it had been abandoned for years, but Marcus was learning that appearances meant nothing in this world. Rusted exterior panels hung at awkward angles. Broken windows gaped like missing teeth. Graffiti covered the walls in layers of competing tags. Nothing that would attract attention from the Phoenix PD or rival clubs. Inside was a different story entirely. Marcus had never seen so many motorcycles in one place. They filled the massive space like a chrome and steel army, parked in neat rows that spoke to military precision. Harleys, mostly, but also Indians and a few custom builds that looked like they cost more than most cars. Their polished surfaces caught and reflected the overhead lights, creating a kaleidoscope of glittering metal. And their owners were even more impressive. 1,000 Hell's Angels members, ranging from kids barely older than Marcus to veterans in their 70s, all wearing their patches with the kind of pride that came from earning them through blood and loyalty. The noise was overwhelming. Conversations, laughter, the clink of beer bottles, the scrape of boots on concrete. It sounded like an army preparing for deployment. Marcus sat in a corner with Hannah and Lily, trying to make himself invisible. Hannah had cleaned his wounds with a first aid kit someone produced, wrapping his palm in white gauze that already showed spots of red. Lily sat pressed against his side, her small body radiating warmth and trust that Marcus didn't know how to handle. But invisibility was impossible when you were the reason 1,000 bikers had gathered for an emergency meeting. Reaper stood on a makeshift stage, really just a wooden platform someone had cobbled together from pallets and 2x4s. His presence commanded immediate attention. Conversations died like snuffed candles as he raised one hand. "Brothers," his voice boomed through the warehouse without needing a microphone. "We've got a situation." The last murmurs faded into silence, so complete that Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. "This afternoon, a man approached my family outside our clubhouse. He was wearing a vest. My wife and daughter were seconds away from whatever he had planned." Reaper's voice cracked slightly, the first time Marcus had seen any vulnerability in the man. This kid, Marcus, 14 years old, homeless, no reason to give a damn about any of us, tackled that man and saved them. 1,000 heads turned toward Marcus in unison. He wanted to disappear into the concrete floor, to become dust and blow away. Phoenix PD opened the vest. No explosives, just evidence. USB drives, documents, photographs. A human trafficking ring that stretches from Arizona to Nevada and probably beyond. Names of people in law enforcement. Politicians, judges, people with the kind of power that makes witnesses disappear without a trace. The warehouse erupted in angry voices. Curses flew. Fists slammed against metal barrels. The temperature seemed to rise 10 degrees from pure rage. "And this kid," Reaper continued, pointing directly at Marcus, "is now a witness. Which means the people who run that trafficking ring want him dead. Probably already have contracts out on him. A younger biker near the front, maybe 30, with a shaved head and scars running down his neck like someone had tried to saw his head off, stood up abruptly. With all due respect, Reaper, this ain't our fight. We bring the feds into our business. We're asking for a world of hurt. ATF, FBI, Homeland Security. They'll crawl up our asses looking for any excuse to shut us down. Seize our assets. Arrest our brothers. Several others nodded in agreement, their expressions conflicted but worried. Coward talk, Grizz growled from his position near the stage. The old veteran stood slowly, his Vietnam service medals pinned to his vest catching the light. This kid put his life on the line for our family, for our brother. And you want to throw him back to the streets so some trafficking scum can put a bullet in his head. I want to protect this club, the younger biker shot back, his voice rising. My kids depend on this brotherhood. My wife depends on it. We've got enough heat as it is without becoming bodyguards for some homeless kid we don't even know. The argument spread like wildfire through dry brush. Voices rose in competing waves. Accusations flew. Marcus felt his chest tighten as he realized he was the cause of this division, this fracture in something that had seemed unbreakable. Like and subscribe before everything falls apart. Hannah placed a protective hand on his shoulder, but it didn't help. He'd spent his entire life being unwanted, being the problem nobody wanted to deal with. This was just another version of the same story, people arguing about whether he was worth the trouble of keeping alive. Maybe I should just go, Marcus whispered to Hannah. Absolutely not, she said fiercely. Reaper slammed his fist on a metal barrel, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the warehouse. Enough. Silence crashed down with the weight of a physical thing. We vote. That's how we do things. That's how we've always done things. Reaper's eyes swept across the assembled bikers, making eye contact with dozens of them. But before you vote, ask yourself one question. What kind of men are we if we let a kid die because protecting him is inconvenient? What kind of brotherhood turns its back on someone who bled for us? Grizz stood again, his old bones creaking audibly. I was in Da Nang in '68. Watched brothers die for people they'd never met, in a country they couldn't find on a map, because it was the right thing to do. This boy has more honor in his skinny body than most men twice his size. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He charged into danger to save innocent lives. We protect him, or we're not the brotherhood I thought I joined 50 years ago. The room was silent for a long moment, broken only by the distant sound of traffic outside. Then Viper stood, his cobra tattoo seeming to writhe in the dim light. I vote we protect the kid. Another biker stood, then another, then 10, then 50, then hundreds. Marcus watched in stunned silence as nearly every single member of the Phoenix Hells Angels chapter rose to their feet in a show of solidarity that made his throat close up with emotions he didn't have names for. Tears burned behind his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. The final count was overwhelming. 973 votes to protect Marcus. 27 abstentions. 0 votes against. Reaper's eyes were wet when he looked at Marcus. Your family now, kid. Anyone comes for you. They come through all of us. The warehouse erupted in cheers, and the thunder of boots stomping on concrete. The sound was deafening, primal, powerful. Hannah was crying again, hugging Lily close. Even Lily was smiling now, her earlier fear replaced with something that looked like hope. Marcus felt something break open in his chest, something that had been frozen solid since the day he found his mother dead in that Tempe motel room. Reaper began outlining the protection plan, safe houses in Scottsdale and Tempe, rotating guards in 6-hour shifts, encrypted communication protocols, background checks on anyone who came within 50 feet of Marcus when his phone rang. The sound cut through the celebration like a knife. He glanced at the screen and frowned. Unknown number. The warehouse quieted as brothers noticed Reaper's expression change. He answered it on speaker, his voice cautious. Yeah. The voice that came through was electronically distorted, robotic, and cold, devoid of any humanity. Congratulations on your vote, Reaper. Very touching. Very noble. Very stupid. The warehouse went dead silent. 1,000 men barely breathing. Who is this? Reaper demanded, his knuckles white around the phone. Someone who's very disappointed in your decision. We gave you a chance to walk away, to forget you ever saw that evidence, to let the boy become someone else's problem. The voice paused, letting the silence stretch into something unbearable. You just made a declaration of war. Marcus's blood turned to ice. His vision tunneled until all he could see was Reaper's phone, that small device carrying death through its speakers. The boy dies, or your chapter burns. Every clubhouse, every brother, every family member. We'll dismantle everything you've built over 50 years, piece by piece, brick by brick, body by body. Reaper's jaw clenched so hard Marcus could hear his teeth grinding. Try it. Oh, we will. You have 72 hours to deliver the boy to us. Alive, unharmed. Drop him at the coordinates we'll text you. Walk away, and this ends peacefully. And if we don't, Reaper growled. The laugh that came through the phone was the most terrifying sound Marcus had ever heard. Then we start with Hannah and Lily. Maybe we'll take them alive. Maybe we won't. Depends on our mood in 72 hours. The line went dead. The safe house in Scottsdale looked like every other stucco mansion in the neighborhood. Beige walls, terracotta roof tiles, perfectly manicured desert landscaping with barrel cacti and decorative rocks. Nothing about it screamed witness protection or biker safe house, which was exactly the point. Marcus stood in the driveway at 2 a.m., exhausted and terrified, as Reaper punched a code into the garage door keypad. The past 6 hours had been a blur of movement, leaving the warehouse through 3 different exits, switching vehicles 4 times, driving in circles through Phoenix to lose any potential tails. This place belonged to a brother who moved to Nevada last year, Reaper explained as the garage door rolled open. Off the books. No paper trail connecting it to the club. You'll be safe here. Marcus wanted to believe him, but the distorted voice on the phone kept echoing in his head. 72 hours. Hannah and Lily. Maybe alive. Maybe not. Inside, the house was sparse but functional. Leather furniture that had seen better days. A kitchen stocked with enough food to survive a siege. Reinforced doors with multiple deadbolts. Windows covered with blackout curtains and steel shutters. 6 Hells Angels members would rotate guard duty in 12-hour shifts. Grizz took the first watch along with Viper and 4 others Marcus didn't know yet. They carried enough firepower to start a small war, handguns, shotguns, and what looked like AR-15s. Get some sleep, kid, Grizz said, gesturing to a bedroom down the hall. We've got you covered. But Marcus couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house settling made him jump. Every distant car engine sounded like assassins arriving. He lay on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the 72 hours to expire. Dawn came slowly, painting the edges of the blackout curtains with orange light. Marcus must have dozed off because he woke to the smell of bacon and coffee. In the kitchen, Viper was cooking breakfast like this was a normal Tuesday morning instead of a countdown to war. Eat, Viper said, sliding a plate across the counter. Scrambled eggs, bacon, toast. More food than Marcus usually ate in 2 days. You're too skinny. Can't protect yourself if you're running on empty. The first day passed in strange normalcy. Grizz taught Marcus how to play poker. Viper showed him basic self-defense moves, how to break a grip, where to strike to disable an attacker, how to run in a way that made you harder to shoot. The lessons were grim but necessary. That evening, Hannah arrived with Lily. Reaper had moved them to a different safe house across town, but Hannah insisted on visiting. She brought a care package, new clothes from Target, toiletries, and a stack of drawings from Lily. The 8-year-old had drawn Marcus as a superhero, complete with a cape and the Hells Angels winged skull on his chest. She talks about you constantly, Hannah said quietly while Lily showed Marcus each drawing in detail. You're her hero. Marcus didn't feel like anyone's hero. He felt like a ticking time bomb that was going to get everyone killed. Day 2 brought a shift in the guards. New faces, same intensity. A biker named Chains, who had actual chains tattooed around both wrists, took over the kitchen duties. Another one called Preacher, a former military chaplain who'd found brotherhood in the club after leaving the service, stationed himself on the roof with binoculars and a rifle. Reaper visited that afternoon with updates. The Phoenix PD had identified the bomber as a man named Vincent Carver, a former federal informant with connections to organized crime in 3 states. The USB drives contained evidence of a trafficking network that moved women and children from Mexico through Arizona to buyers across the country. Bank accounts, names, addresses, enough to bring down 50 people in powerful positions. The feds want you in witness protection, Reaper said. But I told them no. The moment you enter the system, you're vulnerable. These people have reach inside law enforcement. Marcus appreciated the protection, but guilt gnawed at him constantly. What if I just turned myself in, gave them what they want? Then Hannah and Lily would be safe. No, Reaper cut him off sharply. They'd kill you and still come after my family because we saw the evidence. We know the names. This ends one way. We destroy them before they destroy us. Day 3 arrived with a tension that made the air feel electric. 48 hours gone, 24 remaining. Marcus tried to eat breakfast, but his stomach rejected it. He paced the house like a caged animal while Grizz and Viper watched him with concerned expressions. Outside, Preacher maintained his rooftop vigil, scanning the neighborhood for threats. Lily's drawings covered the refrigerator now, bright spots of color in an otherwise dark situation. Marcus found himself staring at them, wondering if he'd live long enough to thank her properly. Night fell. 70 hours elapsed. 2 hours until midnight marked the 72-hour deadline. Marcus was in the living room with Grizz, Viper, and 4 other guards when the power cut out. Total darkness. Not even the glow of street lights through the curtains. Generators should kick in, Viper said, already moving toward the garage where the backup system was housed. It didn't. 5 seconds of darkness. 10. 15. Something's wrong, Grizz growled, pulling his weapon. Defensive positions. Now, the explosion came from the rear entrance. Not loud enough to be military-grade breaching charges, but effective. The reinforced door blew inward in a shower of splinters and twisted metal. 4 men in tactical gear poured through the smoke. Black clothing, night vision goggles, weapons with laser sights that cut through the darkness like red threads. Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes strobed the room in horrifying snapshots. Grizz returned fire from behind the kitchen counter, his shotgun booming. Viper tackled Marcus to the floor as bullets punched through the drywall above them. The tunnel. Viper screamed. Go. Reaper had shown Marcus the escape route on day 1. A hidden access panel in the master bedroom closet that led to a maintenance tunnel connecting to the storm drain system. 2 blocks of crawling through darkness, but it opened into a residential area. Marcus scrambled toward the bedroom on hands and knees. Behind him, Viper rose and charged the attackers with a war cry that sounded like it came from another century. 3 shots. Viper went down. Like and subscribe before it's too late. No, Marcus screamed, but Grizz grabbed him by the collar and physically dragged him toward the bedroom. He bought you time. Don't waste it. Grizz shoved him into the closet and yanked open the hidden panel. Run and don't stop. We'll find you. Marcus dropped into the tunnel as more gunfire erupted above. He heard Grizz's shotgun boom twice more, then silence that was somehow worse than the noise. The tunnel was pitch black and smelled like mold and rat droppings. Marcus crawled on his belly, his wounded palm screaming in protest as it scraped against concrete. Twice he got stuck and had to exhale completely to squeeze through narrow sections. His chest burned. His knees bled. But he kept moving. After what felt like hours, but was probably 15 minutes, he emerged into a storm drain and climbed a rusty ladder to street level. A quiet residential neighborhood. Houses dark. No signs of pursuit. Marcus collapsed on someone's lawn, gasping for air. His shirt was soaked with sweat and blood, not all of it his own. Viper's blood. Grizz's maybe. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A burner Reaper had given him. One new message. Unknown number. Marcus's hands shook as he opened it. The message contained a single photo, Lily's bedroom window, wide open, sheer curtains blowing in the night wind. The pink walls were visible in the background, along with the stuffed animals Marcus had seen during Hannah's visit. The empty bed was clearly visible. Below the photo, a text message, "They'll all die for you, unless you turn yourself in." Camelback Mountain, East Trailhead, midnight. Come alone or you'll never see Hannah and Lily again. Marcus stared at the photo of Lily's empty bedroom until his vision blurred with tears he refused to let fall. The window, the curtains billowing inward like ghosts. The vacant bed where an 8-year-old girl should have been sleeping safely, clutching the stuffed rabbit she carried everywhere. Gone. Taken because Marcus had been stupid enough to think the Hells Angels could protect everyone. He was crouched behind a dumpster 3 blocks from the breached safe house, his body still trembling from the tunnel escape. His clothes reeked of mold and fierce sweat. His wounded palm had reopened during the crawl, leaving a trail of blood drops on the concrete that anyone could follow. His knees were hamburger meat beneath his torn jeans. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed, police and ambulances responding to reports of gunfire in a quiet Scottsdale neighborhood. Viper and Grizz might be dead. Hannah and Lily were definitely taken. All because he tried to be a hero when he should have stayed invisible like always. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Marcus checked the time on the burner phone with shaking fingers. 11:17 p.m. 43 minutes to reach Camelback Mountains, East Trailhead. In Phoenix traffic, even at night with light roads, that was cutting it dangerously close. He forced himself to stand on legs that felt like water. No plan. No backup. No weapons except the small pocket knife he'd been carrying since his days on the streets. Just a 14-year-old kid with a photographic memory trading his life for a little girl who'd drawn him as a superhero. Because that's what heroes did, right? They sacrificed themselves. The streets of Scottsdale were eerily quiet at this hour. Luxury cars sat in circular driveways behind wrought iron gates. Palm trees rustled in the warm breeze that smelled like desert flowers and chlorine from backyard pools. Landscape lighting cast long shadows across perfectly manicured lawns. This was a neighborhood where people slept peacefully, never imagining the violence that had just erupted 3 blocks away. Marcus kept to those shadows, avoiding streetlights and security cameras as much as possible. Old habits from months of living rough, stealing to survive, hiding from police and predators who saw homeless kids as easy targets. He'd made it 6 blocks when a pickup truck pulled alongside him, its engine purring softly. Marcus's heart stopped. His hand instinctively reached for the pocket knife, flipping it open in his pocket. His eyes darted, calculating escape routes, the gap between houses, the drainage ditch, the fence he could vault if he had to run. The window rolled down with an electric hum. An elderly Hispanic man leaned out, his weathered face creased with concern. Maybe 70, with kind eyes and gray hair. "You okay, kid? It's late to be walking alone. Dangerous, too." Marcus forced his voice to stay steady despite the panic clawing at his throat. "I'm fine, sir. Just heading home." The man studied him for a long moment. The torn clothes, the blood visible on his hands and knees, the wild, desperate look in his eyes that probably screamed victim or criminal, depending on your perspective. "Home is that way," the man said, pointing in the opposite direction. "And you look like you've been through a war." Marcus didn't have a good answer for that. The man sighed and unlocked the passenger door. "Get in. Whatever trouble you're running to or from, you won't make it on foot. I'll give you a ride." Every instinct screamed not to trust anyone. This stranger could be part of the trafficking ring, could be an undercover cop, could be leading him into another trap. But Marcus needed to reach Camelback Mountain, and walking would take too long. Lily's empty bedroom flashed in his mind. "East side of Camelback Mountain," Marcus said quietly, climbing into the truck. "The trailhead parking lot." The man's eyebrows rose to his hairline. "Hiking at midnight? Kid, I wasn't born yesterday." "Please," Marcus whispered, and the desperation in his own voice surprised him. "I don't have much time." Something in Marcus's tone must have convinced him. The man put the truck in drive and pulled back onto the street. He didn't ask more questions, just played soft mariachi music on the radio, trumpets and guitars that reminded Marcus of better times, before his mother's addiction, before CPS, before the streets. They drove in silence for 10 minutes. Marcus watched the neighborhood's transition from wealthy Scottsdale to middle-class suburbs to the undeveloped areas near the mountain preserve. His reflection in the window looked like a ghost, pale, hollow-eyed. already dead. I lost my son when he was about your age, the man said suddenly. Gang violence. He thought he had to prove something, had to handle his problems alone because asking for help made him weak. Marcus said nothing, but his throat tightened. Whatever you're walking into, kid, there's always another way. Always someone who'll help if you just ask. Not this time, Marcus said quietly. This time the only way out is through. They reached the trailhead parking lot at 11:51 p.m. The mountain loomed above them like a sleeping giant, its rocky slopes black against the star-filled sky. The lot held only 3 vehicles. A black sedan with tinted windows, a white SUV that screamed federal agent, and a motorcycle that made Marcus's chest tighten with hope until he saw it wasn't a Harley. The elderly man put the truck in park and turned to Marcus. I'll wait here for 30 minutes. If you come back and need a ride somewhere safe, I'll take you. No questions. Marcus felt tears burning behind his eyes. Thank you. For everything. Go with God, kid. Marcus climbed out into the cool desert night. The truck idled for a moment, then drove to the far corner of the lot, true to his word, waiting. Marcus wondered if he'd still be alive in 30 minutes to take him up on that offer. 11:54 p.m. 6 minutes early. Marcus walked toward the trailhead, his sneakers crunching on gravel that sounded deafening in the silence. The desert was alive with night sounds he'd learned to recognize during his time on the streets. Crickets chirping their endless song, distant coyotes yipping at the moon, the rustle of kangaroo rats moving through brush, the whisper of wind through Palo Verde trees. Every shadow could hide an assassin. Every sound could be his last warning. Marcus! He spun around, fists raised in the pathetic defensive stance Viper had taught him 2 days ago. His pocket knife was in his hand, blade extended, even though he'd never actually stabbed anyone. A woman emerged from behind a massive boulder near the trailhead sign. Late 30s, athletic build, moving with the kind of controlled grace that screamed military or law enforcement training. She wore dark jeans and a lightweight jacket that bulged suspiciously at the hip, a concealed weapon for sure. Her hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and her eyes held the kind of sharp focus Marcus had seen in Reaper's face. Eyes that had seen violence and learned to navigate it. Who are you? Marcus demanded, his voice cracking with fear and exhaustion. FBI agent Elena Torres. She raised her hands slowly, deliberately, showing they were empty. I'm not here to hurt you, Marcus. I'm here to stop you from making a fatal mistake. Marcus backed up a step, his knife hand trembling. They have Hannah and Lily. I saw the photo. I don't have a choice. They don't have them. Torres said quickly, urgently. That photo was taken 3 hours ago during a failed kidnapping attempt. Reaper got a tip from one of our undercover agents. He moved Hannah and Lily before the traffickers could breach their safe house. They're alive, Marcus. They're safe. Marcus wanted desperately to believe her, but trust had never kept him alive on the streets. Trust got you robbed, beaten, worse. Prove it. Right now. Torres slowly reached into her jacket with 2 fingers, moving carefully to avoid spooking him into doing something stupid. She pulled out her phone and turned the screen toward him. A video, time-stamped 11:40 p.m., just 14 minutes ago. Hannah and Lily in a different location, maybe a hotel room. Lily was curled up on a couch, fast asleep, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. Hannah was pacing near the window, her face tear-streaked but very much alive. Around them, at least 20 Hell's Angels members stood guard, an impenetrable wall of leather and loyalty. They're okay, Torres said softly. But you won't be if you stay here. This entire meeting is a setup. This parking lot, this trail, it's a kill zone. The moment you showed up, you became a target. Marcus's legs nearly gave out from relief and confusion. He sat down hard on a nearby rock, his knife clattering to the gravel. I don't understand. Who are you really? What's happening? Torres holstered her phone and crouched down to his eye level, her voice low and urgent. The bomber, Vincent Carver, he wasn't trying to kill anyone that day outside the clubhouse. He was a federal informant, my informant, trying to deliver evidence to Reaper because corrupt agents within my own bureau are on the trafficking ring's payroll. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. I've been investigating this trafficking network for 2 years, Torres continued, her voice turning bitter. 17 missing women. 6 children. A pipeline running from Sonora through Phoenix to buyers in Vegas, LA, even Seattle. Every time I got close to making arrests, my investigations got shut down. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses recanted or vanished. Because cops were involved, Marcus said, understanding dawning. Not just cops. FBI agents. ICE officers. A federal prosecutor. People who were supposed to protect victims became the monsters. Torres's hands clenched into fists. Carver was going to testify. The evidence on those USB drives would have brought down the entire network. You tackling him wasn't part of the plan. You became a witness we hadn't accounted for. Like and subscribe before the whole truth destroys everything. The safe house attack. 3 rogue FBI agents. Torres confirmed, her voice hard. All 3 are on the payroll list from those USB drives. They staged the breach to recover the evidence and eliminate you as a loose end. Viper and Grizz survived, by the way. They're in surgery at Phoenix Baptist, but the doctors say they'll both make it. Marcus felt tears burning his eyes, relief and rage warring in his chest. Viper wasn't dead. Grizz wasn't dead. They'd taken bullets for him and survived. So what now? Marcus asked, his voice raw. You arrest me? Put me in witness protection where your corrupt friends can find me and kill me. No, I'm offering you something better. A partnership between the Bureau's clean agents and the Hells Angels. We protect you, you testify, and together we dismantle this network from both sides. Legal pressure from us, street justice from them. That's illegal. So is human trafficking, Torres shot back. Sometimes you fight dirty to win clean. The sound of approaching motorcycles cut off whatever Marcus was going to say next. Not 1 or 2. Dozens. The rumble of Harley engines echoed off Camelback Mountain, growing louder with each second like rolling thunder. Headlights appeared on the access road, a river of light cutting through the darkness, turning night into artificial day. Torres's hand went to her weapon, her body tensing for a fight. Damn it! How did they find you so fast? Tracking app, Marcus realized, pulling out the burner phone. Viper said he installed one so they could always find me if something went wrong. Smart and terrible, Torres muttered. 12 motorcycles roared into the parking lot in a coordinated formation, their engines creating a symphony of controlled power. They formed a semicircle around Marcus and Torres, effectively cutting off all escape routes. Riders dismounted in unison, weapons drawn, handguns mostly, but Marcus spotted at least 3 shotguns. And leading them, his face twisted with rage and something deeper, betrayal maybe, or soul-deep fear, was Reaper. Blood stained his vest. His knuckles were split and bruised. His eyes locked onto Torres with the kind of hatred that promised violence. Step away from the boy, Fed, Reaper growled. His Glock pointed directly at Torres's chest. His finger was already on the trigger, not alongside it. Now, Torres didn't move, didn't flinch, but Marcus saw her calculate the odds. 12 armed bikers, 1 of her, and a kid with no combat training. Reaper, listen to me. I'm done listening to feds. Reaper's voice was ice. Every time we trust you people, brothers die. Every time we cooperate, we get raided. Every time we believe your promises, we end up in prison or graves. She's trying to help, Marcus shouted, jumping to his feet and stepping between them. His body was small, insignificant, but it was all he had to offer. She's not one of the corrupt ones. She's been investigating them. They're all corrupt, Reaper snarled, his gun never wavering. That's what you learn when you've lived long enough, kid. The system protects itself, not people like us. Not people like you. Torres slowly reached into her jacket with 2 fingers, her movements exaggerated and careful. I'm reaching for evidence. Don't shoot. 3 bikers tensed, their weapons tracking her movement. She pulled out a small flash drive, holding it up like a peace offering. This contains recordings of 3 FBI agents, Special Agents Hendricks, Morrison, and Cho, planning Marcus's assassination. Bank transfers linking them to the trafficking ring. Phone records proving they leaked safe house locations. Everything you need to know, I'm telling the truth. Or it's a tracking device and a tactical team is 30 seconds out, Reaper countered. His jaw clenched so tight Marcus could see the muscle jumping. Or it's a virus to corrupt our systems. Or it's just another Fed trick. The standoff stretched into something unbearable. Marcus could feel the tension like electricity in the desert air, could smell the gun oil and gasoline and fear sweat. One wrong move and people would die. Again, because of him. I memorized the names, Marcus said quietly into the silence. Everyone looked at him. From the documents in Carver's vest. Before the FBI confiscated them. Every page, every word, every number. Marcus's voice grew stronger as he spoke. I have photographic memory. Developed it living on the streets. You remember everything, because forgetting means missing a threat. I can recite every name, every address, every bank account number from those files. Reaper's expression shifted from rage to dawning understanding. Torres's eyes widened with something that looked dangerously like hope. The other bikers murmured among themselves, weapons still raised, but no longer aimed with quite the same intensity. If that's true, Torres said slowly, choosing each word carefully, then you're not just a witness. You're the evidence itself. Everything on those USB drives exists in your head. Which means everyone wants him, Reaper finished, his voice hollow. Both sides. The traffickers want him dead. The feds want him in their custody. We can't protect him forever. The feds sure as hell can't. Nobody can. I can, said a new voice from the darkness beyond the headlight beams. Everyone spun toward the sound, weapons rising. A figure stepped into the pool of light created by the motorcycle headlights. Male, late 50s, wearing an expensive charcoal suit that looked completely out of place on a hiking trail at midnight. His shoes were polished Italian leather worth more than Marcus had ever owned in his entire life. His silver hair was perfectly styled. His smile was cold and professional, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. Behind him, 6 more figures emerged from the darkness. Tactical gear, night vision goggles pushed up on their heads, military-grade weapons with suppressors. "Hello, Marcus," the man said, his voice smooth as silk and twice as expensive. "I've been looking everywhere for you, and I'm afraid I can't let any of you leave this mountain alive." The man in the expensive suit smiled like a predator admiring cornered prey, his teeth too white and too perfect under the harsh glare of motorcycle headlights. "My name is Richard Castellanos," he said, his voice carrying the casual confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences in his entire privileged life. "Perhaps you've heard of me. Deputy Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Southwest Region. I oversee border operations from San Diego to El Paso." He paused, letting that sink in, clearly enjoying the reveal. "Or perhaps you know me by my other title. The man who runs the most profitable trafficking operation between Sonora and California." Marcus felt his stomach drop through the desert floor. This wasn't some hired enforcer or mid-level criminal. This was the head of the snake, the monster at the top of the pyramid. Torres's weapon was out instantly, her Glock aimed center mass at Castellanos' chest. "You son of a bitch. I've been hunting you for 2 years. 2 years of dead ends and witnesses who disappeared. And I've been watching you fumble around like a blind woman in the dark," Castellanos replied, his smile never wavering even with a gun pointed at his heart. His 6 tactical operatives fanned out behind him with military precision, creating a kill box that trapped everyone in the parking lot. Night vision goggles rested on their heads. Suppressed rifles hung ready in their hands. "Did you really think I didn't know about your investigation? Every report you filed, every warrant you requested, every informant you recruited, I saw it all before your supervisor did." Reaper's bikers shifted positions, forming a protective wall around Marcus without needing orders. 12 against 7. Poor odds considering Castellanos' men had military-grade equipment, tactical training, and the element of surprise. "You killed Carver," Torres said, her voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Your own informant." "Of course I did." "Well, not personally. I have people for that." Castellanos adjusted his cufflinks casually, as if discussing stock portfolios rather than murder. Vincent made the fatal error of growing a conscience. Started having nightmares about the children. Thought he could deliver evidence to a biker gang and somehow bring down my entire operation. Instead, he created this wonderful mess that's about to solve all my problems in one efficient night. Marcus's mind raced through possibilities, escape routes, anything that might keep everyone alive. The elderly man's truck was still idling in the far corner of the parking lot. He'd kept his word, waiting, but it was too far to reach. The trail behind them led deeper into Camelback Mountain, but they'd be cut down by suppressed gunfire before making 10 feet. The tactical team had infrared scopes. They'd be visible even in total darkness. You see, Marcus. May I call you Marcus? You've become quite the liability. Castellanos continued, his cold gray eyes finally settling on him like a judge pronouncing a death sentence. A homeless boy with photographic memory who's memorized my entire operation. My buyers in Vegas and Seattle. My routes through the desert. My shell company accounts in the Caymans. You're a walking, talking federal indictment that I simply cannot allow to exist. So kill me and get it over with, Marcus said, surprised by the steadiness in his own voice. Maybe he'd been ready to die since the moment he tackled that bomber. Maybe longer. Oh, I absolutely intend to. But not before I eliminate everyone who's seen or heard about that evidence. Agent Torres here, obviously. The Phoenix Hells Angels leadership. Castellanos paused, savoring Marcus's reaction like fine wine. And of course, Hannah and Lily. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Yes, I know where they really are, Castellanos said, reading Marcus's expression perfectly. Did you think Reaper could hide them from me? I have access to every traffic camera, every surveillance system, every facial recognition database in this city. They're at the Marriott on North Scottsdale Road, room 847, surrounded by 23 bikers who think they're safe. Reaper's gun hand trembled with rage, so pure it radiated off him like heat. You touch my family. You'll what? Castellanos spread his hands wide, mocking. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and completely surrounded. My men have thermal imaging. I have helicopter support 3 minutes out, a private security contractor I keep on retainer. And I have the full weight of federal law enforcement ready to brand you all as cop killers who ambushed a federal agent. He gestured to his tactical team with the casual authority of a man used to commanding death. Agent Torres will tragically die in a shootout with violent motorcycle gang members. You'll all be gunned down in justified self-defense. And Marcus will simply disappear, another homeless statistic, probably dead from a drug overdose in a few weeks when his body turns up in a dumpster. The media will run with it for 48 hours and then forget he ever existed. The tactical operatives raised their weapons in perfect unison, red laser sights painting dots across chests and foreheads. Marcus counted 7 dots on his own body. They weren't taking chances. Wait, Torres said suddenly, desperately, her FBI training kicking into by time. You can't kill a federal agent and expect no investigation. The Bureau will tear this city apart. Can't I? Castellanos laughed, the sound hollow and cruel. I've done it twice before. Agent Morrison in Tucson last year ruled a cartel hit. Agent Chun in El Paso 3 years ago, ambushed during a traffic stop. The Bureau investigates, finds nothing, and moves on because everyone knows the border is dangerous. He checked his expensive Patek Philippe watch, probably worth more than most people earned in a year. You have 30 seconds to make peace with whatever God you believe in. I'd recommend starting now. Marcus's hand found the flash drive Torres had shown Reaper earlier, still in her jacket pocket where she'd returned it after the standoff. His fingers closed around the small device. If he was going to die tonight, he'd die making sure this evidence survived somehow. Maybe throw it into the darkness. Maybe the elderly man would find it. 20 seconds. Reaper caught Marcus's eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. Understanding passed between them without words. The kind of communication that came from shared danger. If they were going down tonight, they'd take Castellanos with them. Die fighting, not begging. 10 seconds. Marcus heard the tactical team disengage their safeties, the small clicks impossibly loud in the tense silence. The roar of engines erupted from 3 directions simultaneously. Not helicopters. Motorcycles. Hundreds of them. Headlights blazed to life on the access roads surrounding the parking lot. In the desert terrain that should have been impassable, even on the steep hiking trails where bikes shouldn't have been able to navigate. The sound was absolutely deafening. A wall of mechanical thunder that made the ground vibrate beneath Marcus's feet like an earthquake. Castellanos's predatory smile finally cracked, confusion and fear bleeding through his composed mask. What the hell? You made a mistake, Reaper said, his voice rising above the engine roar with savage satisfaction. You thought this was about one chapter, one kid, one fight. You thought we were 12 bikers protecting a witness. Nearly 1,000 Hell's Angels motorcycles converged on the Camelback trailhead from every conceivable direction, their riders armed and ready for war. They'd been positioned in the darkness for hours, waiting, watching, letting the trap snap shut. Brothers from Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, even chapters from Nevada and California who'd ridden through the night. The trap had been reversed completely. Grizz's voice came through a loudspeaker mounted on his bike, rough but very much alive despite the bullets he'd taken. Drop your weapons, or we drop you. You have 5 seconds. Castellanos' tactical team found themselves surrounded by an army, outnumbered more than 100 to 1. Red laser sights that had been targeting bikers now had dozens of gun barrels pointed back at them from every angle. The math had changed catastrophically in less than 10 seconds. Like and subscribe. Witness history being made right now. You can't kill all of us, Torres said, her weapon still trained on Castellanos, her voice steady now that backup had arrived. And I should mention, I've been live streaming this entire conversation to my supervisor at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. Deputy Director Sarah Chun, the one person in my entire chain of command I know isn't on your payroll. She's heard everything. Castellanos' face went from tan to ash pale in seconds. His hand moved toward his jacket, a weapon, probably, or a phone to call for his helicopter extraction. Don't, Reaper warned. Castellanos drew anyway, desperation overriding judgment. 6 bikers fired simultaneously. Not killing shots. Reaper wanted him alive to face justice, but disabling ones. Bullets shattered Castellanos' right kneecap and tore through his shoulder. He crumpled to the gravel screaming, his weapon skittering away into darkness. His tactical team threw down their rifles immediately, hands raised high. They were mercenaries, not martyrs. They'd been paid to provide security, not die for a losing cause. The next 2 hours were controlled chaos. FBI agents flooding the scene in unmarked vehicles, police helicopters circling overhead, ambulances for the wounded. Torres kept her word about the live stream. Her supervisor had indeed heard everything and dispatched the FBI's Tactical Operations Center from Phoenix. Marcus sat on the tailgate of someone's pickup truck, wrapped in a shock blanket despite the warm desert night, watching justice unfold in real time. Paramedics checked his wounds, the reopened palm, the scraped knees, the bruises. Nothing serious. Nothing compared to what could have happened. Viper and Grizz arrived in an ambulance, both bandaged but grinning. Heard you almost got dead without us, Ghost, Viper said, using the nickname that had somehow already spread through the Brotherhood. Almost, Marcus managed, his voice thick with relief. Torres coordinated the arrests personally, ensuring Castellanos' men were separated and processed before they could coordinate stories. She approached Marcus as the scene finally began to wind down around 3 a.m. 17 arrests today based on the evidence from those drives and Castellanos' confession, she said, exhaustion and triumph mixing in her voice. Including 2 U.S. senators, a federal judge, and 6 law enforcement officials. Your testimony is going to change everything, Marcus. This is the biggest trafficking bust in Southwest history. If I survive long enough to testify, Marcus said quietly. Torres's expression turned serious. You will. We'll make sure of it. My supervisor is personally overseeing your protection. No corrupt agents, no leaks. You have my word. Your word and 1,000 bikers, Reaper added, approaching with Hannah and Lily. Lily broke free from her mother's grip and sprinted to Marcus, hugging him so hard He couldn't breathe. "You saved us again," she whispered, her small body shaking. "The bad man said he was coming for us, but you stopped him." "You're my hero," she added, pulling back to look at him with those wide, trusting eyes. "No," Marcus said, his throat tight. "You're mine. You reminded me people are worth saving. That I'm worth saving." Hannah hugged them both, crying quietly. 3 days later, Marcus stood in the Arizona desert under a blood moon, surrounded by 1,000 Hells Angels members who'd ridden from chapters across the entire country: Washington, Oregon, Texas, even a contingent from Florida who'd been riding for 3 days straight. They'd voted. Not just Phoenix, but the entire southwestern network and beyond. Marcus would be protected, moved between chapters as needed, given new identities and safe houses until every last name from Carver's evidence list was either behind bars or dead. The Brotherhood had never protected an outsider like this before, but they'd never had a reason like this before. Reaper stood before Marcus holding a leather vest and a patch, the Hells Angels' winged skull, but modified with a small ghost in the corner of the design. This club was founded in 1948 on a simple principle: brotherhood, Reaper said, his voice carrying across the silent desert. On protecting those who can't protect themselves. On standing against injustice even when the system fails us. Even when the world calls us criminals, we know who we really are. He pinned the patch to Marcus's new vest with steady hands. "You're not homeless anymore, kid. You're not alone. You're family. And your name in this brotherhood is Ghost. Because you'll haunt every bastard who thinks they can hurt innocent people and get away with it." 1,000 bikers raised their fists and roared approval that echoed off the mountains. Hannah and Lily were there, both crying. Lily ran forward and hugged Marcus so hard he thought his ribs might crack. "You're my hero forever," she whispered. "You're mine," Marcus whispered back. "You all are." The celebration continued into the night. Brothers laughing, drinking, telling stories around bonfires. Music played. Food appeared from nowhere. For the first time since his mother died, Marcus felt like he belonged somewhere. As midnight approached, Marcus stepped away from the crowd to catch his breath. His burner phone buzzed in his vest pocket. New message. Unknown number. Every instinct screamed not to open it. But he had to know. His blood turned to ice as the image loaded. A hospital room, sterile and white. The same hospital where Viper and Grizz were recovering. And in the bed, connected to machines, was Viper, supposedly healing from surgery, supposedly safe. Except every machine showed flatlines. No heartbeat, no breathing, no brain activity. The photo was time-stamped 30 minutes ago. The message below read, "Congratulations on your victory, Ghost." Very impressive. Unfortunately, Richard Castellanos was just middle management, a regional director we can easily replace. The real people who run this organization operate at levels you can't even imagine. Federal agencies, corporate boards, foreign governments. And now they know exactly who you are, where you are, and who you care about. Viper was just a message. Sweet dreams. We'll be seeing you very soon. Marcus's hands shook violently as he showed the phone to Reaper. Reaper's expression hardened into something Marcus had never seen before. Pure, cold terror masked by rage. "Get everyone to Phoenix Baptist Hospital. Now," Reaper bellowed across the celebration. Brothers scrambled, dropping bottles and plates. Motorcycles roared to life in seconds. The celebration turned into a military deployment. But as they mounted up and prepared to ride, Marcus realized with horrible, sinking certainty that they were already too late. If Viper had been dead for 30 minutes, the killers were long gone. And they'd proven they could reach anyone, anywhere, anytime. Torres appeared at Marcus's side, her phone pressed to her ear, her face pale. "My supervisor just went offline. Her security detail isn't responding. The safe house where we moved Hannah and Lily 3 hours ago." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Marcus looked at the 1,000 bikers preparing to ride into battle, at Reaper's devastated face, at Lily clutching her mother in the crowd. The war hadn't ended on Camelback Mountain. It had only just begun. And this time, the enemy was everywhere.